Welcome back to Sunday Vibes. Look who's in the building today. Hello, Doogie Critchley, Mikey McCabbin, and I am back. Yes, it's good to be back, man.
Good to have you.
It's really good to be back. It's good to see you guys at home as well. How's everybody been? How have you been?
Yeah, not too bad, thanks. Not too bad.
Yeah?
Just, you know.
That sounded suspicious, man.
Not really?
Yeah.
Well,
sleuthy.
What do you know?
Well, the traitors will be done by Friday, traitors final. So by the time you're watching this, and if you do watch the traitors as well, you will have seen the twist at the end.
Prediction?
I'm not saying anything.
Prediction?
It doesn't involve me. Prediction. What early does? I think the safe prediction is that Harry takes the lot.
We're shooting this on Thursday, by the way, but not seen the Thursday episode yet. So I also think Harry is going to be very hard to displace here.
Yeah.
It's going to take a major hammer blow upon Andrew's exit to take him down, I think, which is a shame.
Unless Andrew manages the mastermind of all masterminds.
Who knows? There's more chance United get top four.
There's no Doogies, I'm afraid.
Declan?
No Declans.
There's a Diane. There was a Diane.
Yeah. She's already out.
Yes, and she was Scottish.
Hey.
She is Irish, actually.
Maybe I need to watch it. The amount you guys have talked about it, I feel like I have missed out on a popular culture moment.
You have. Absolutely. How have you been, though, Dukes?
I'm good, thank you. I actually bumped into a Football Daily fan yesterday, and I felt a bit rude because we were getting onto a train, and you know when everyone's sort of hustling and bustling to get on the train. Anyway, I didn't maybe give him my full attention, so shout out whoever you were. You look like a really nice guy. I think you probably look like a sort of Tom. Anyway, shout out, I'm calling you Tom, who was a fan of Football Daily, really appreciated our work, which is always nice to hear.
Nice, we're still here battling away. So today, as you can see from the title, we are talking about deadline day deals, potential deals that could be wrapped up before deadline day. We've each brought to the table 3 rumours that have been surfacing online over the last few days, or maybe further back than that, that still could rear its ugly head before deadline day. We're going to kind of chat about them, see what we think about them.
Maybe trying to assign which ones we think are the most important to get done before deadline day and which ones are maybe can be left towards the summer, because it feels like a lot of clubs are leaving a lot of business towards the summer.
Do you want to go first then?
Yeah, why not? I want to talk about a guy that has been quite strongly linked with Spurs, actually, Antonio Nusa, the Club Brugge winger. Now, they are in talks supposedly with Spurs, at least when last reported, which was about a week ago, over a €30 million deal. Nusa would then stay at Club Brugge until the end of the season and join. And he's an incredibly exciting talent. He's already broken through into the Norwegian setup. Him and Oscar Bob on either wing. Feels like there's a really good crop of Norwegian talent obviously coming through, led by Haaland and Odegaard. But they do have some attacking weapons now. And Nusa's been really, really impressive in those moments for Norway. And they call him the Norwegian Neymar, which is not particularly helpful, I think, for an 18-year-old. But that is the sort of level of when you watch him play, those are the qualities he's got. I'm not saying he does it to the same level, but it's dribbling in tight spaces, amazing acceleration off either foot. Just looks like whatever it is, he's got it. Like he looks really, really exciting. And last year sort of broke through into Club Brugge's starting 11 at 17. This year's really kicked on though. And in terms of successful take-ons, progressive passes received, I know he's playing in the Belgian league, but he's up there with Saka in his own division. Successful take-ons would be right up there in the Premier League as well, compared to those numbers in the Premier League. So, yeah, he's adding goals and assists to his name, and it feels like Arsenal are looking at him, Liverpool are looking at him, Dortmund are looking at him. So if Spurs can get this done in January and loan him back for the rest of the season so he can continue his development, I think it's a really potentially exciting move. And with Timo Werner having come in January, they don't need him maybe immediately, but with Perisic having left the club, with Manos Solomon sort of injured regularly, with Ryan Sessegnon having sort of stalled in his career really, signing another left winger is a really good option for them. And he can play on either flank as well. So I'm quite excited about this potential move.
Yeah, I think Chelsea were interested in him last summer as well, weren't they? And that deal ended up collapsing for some reason. Maybe one of the other 32 youngsters that Chelsea opted to sign, send out on loan to one of their sort of feeder clubs. But yeah, I kind of agree. I think Tottenham could do with a bit more depth in wide areas, especially if Timo Werner doesn't get made permanent. I'm not sure Brennan Johnson's had quite the impact he would have hoped, but he's very young. I see a few Tottenham fans sort of writing him off early and already, and I think that's probably going to be a mistake. I think he's got lots of natural ability, specifically physical ability. Across 10 yards, he's very, very quick. I think he could do with working on his decision making a little bit, and he just looks a little bit rushed at times when it comes to the final third. Yeah, when he's in and around the box, you kind of want a little bit more composure. But he's so young. I think a lot of the natural ability he's got will come to the fore under good coaching, and that's certainly what he's going to get from Ange Postecoglou. He can also kind of play both flanks. So if you think you'd have Nusa, you'd have Brennan Johnson as your wide options, I think it's all right. I think they probably will look to bring another one in, though. It's young, isn't it? It's very, very
really
young.
But I suppose you need to start, Spurs don't really want to think about this, but you do need to start thinking about life after Son as well. And signing a player that is, amongst that crop of sort of 18-year-olds that are really emerging on the European stage is really, really exciting. And a lot of Belgian talent have actually adapted quite well to other leagues quite quickly. I mean, look at Victor Boniface this year at Bayer Leverkusen, Lewis Openda only was it at Lens for a year, Odion Kosulu, who's doing really well for Bayer Leverkusen as well, Chad de Ketelara now doing really well at Atalanta. So it's a league that seems to, not take too long to get up to top 5 league level. So if Spurs did bring him in and he was sort of eased in from the start of next season, I think it'd be quite exciting.
Yeah, I like that move. Given that it's Tottenham, it's 30 million euros, was it?
Yeah.
And they've got a bit of money in the bank from the good Harold Kane.
Yeah.
Also, I think
they're the only club that are spending.
They're the only club that's spending, and recently their recruitment has been bloody good. Specifically in the summer with Mickey van der Ven, James Maddison. Prior to that as well, almost Vicaria, alongside the sort of Paratici overhaul of that recruitment structure. And I think he's still working as sort of a consultant there on some level, isn't he? So I think a lot of that recruitment probably has his fingerprints on it. But if this is another example of a youngster they've brought to the club, then more power to him, man.
Let's see whether they can get it done.
Mikey?
Yep. Shall I stick on Spurs or shall I go elsewhere?
Let's go elsewhere, man.
Let's go to Man United then, because obviously Anthony Martial out for 10 weeks now.
He's never playing again, is he, for United?
Probably not. I mean, he'd be back in around April time. He's gone in the summer. His contract's up in the summer. So yeah, I think we may well have seen our last game of Anthony Martial in the United shirt. It would have been 9 years at the club when he leaves, which is pretty astounding given just how kind of bitty his United career has been.
Is he the most expensive teenager in the world when he signed? Maybe I've made that up. He's definitely right up there.
I think he may well have, I think he was like 40 million, wasn't he? And that was in the days that 40 million was still, not the most common kind of price pre-Neymar days, certainly. And he's had one loan to Sevilla, and that's it. It's pretty mad to think. So 2 weeks ago, I said that United probably just shouldn't sign anyone this January, but that was on the presumption that Martial would probably be available at least as a backup for these last few months. As it stands, though,
are you actually saying United need another lone striker?
Maybe get Eric Choupo-Moting in from Bayern Munich. The problem is that Choupo-Moting's contract is up in the summer, so whether Bayern would actually sanction a loan, I'm not so sure. He's 35 in March. Having said that, they do have Mathis Tel as backup. He has mainly played on the wing, but they do have good backup even without Choupo-Moting for Harry Kane. The other option is that Man United, I mean, the thing is, United don't have money to spend, so it would have to be a loan if they were to get someone in. But if there was some way of getting Joshua Zirkzee through the door as a more long-term option as backup for Højlund, or someone to, even play alongside him potentially, maybe that's something they could do. Maybe if they were to work something where they had like a loan with a obligation to buy in the summer potentially, when there are going to be more funds, that feels a lot more like an Ineos signing actually, Zirkzee. So I'm going to change my mind actually. Joshua Zirkzee from Bologna, 7 goals in Serie A this season, 22 years old, fits the kind of mould that United should be looking for, and United do need to have two very good centre forwards going into next season.
I just think United have to hit pause. They have to hit pause. They really do. I think the Joshua Zirkzee example, I think potentially at a structured club might work. But I think who is making this signing? United are yet to appoint a sporting director. They're yet to appoint a new head of recruitment. And those are the rumours that we're hearing from very reliable sources are going to be made. If Joshua Zirkzee arrives before the sporting director and before the head of recruitment arrive, what happens if it's an obligation to buy, if that head of recruitment and sporting director go, we're going down a totally different route here. Joshua Zirkzee doesn't suit our style of football. We're going to have to pay a €50 million obligation to buy from Bologna because they're not going to want a small amount, given that it's going mid-season. And potentially, it's not beyond the realms of possibility. If there's a coaching change, that's even more turnover. He might want to move into a totally different direction. I think until there's a new sporting director, a new head of recruitment there, Man United should not be doing any business.
Even if it's a loan with no obligation.
You just don't get Zirkzee.
You're never going to get Zirkzee on that deal.
No, but you could get Choupo-Moting.
But what's the point?
Just because you don't have anyone behind Højlund unless you play Rashford centrally, who struggled
I'd rather
to
do that.
This year.
I'd absolutely rather do that. I don't see any benefit from signing.
Goals so much.
I don't see any benefit from signing a loan signing. This season, beyond potentially a run in the FA Cup, is a write-off. It is a write-off. United are not getting
You've
top
already
4.
loaned out Sancho, like a couple of injuries to your forward line, and you look really pretty thin.
Of course, but the season, nothing is going to happen domestically really for United. They're out of Europe. They're out of the Carabao. They are not going to finish in the top 4. Yeah, so the FA Cup potentially, let's take that as an example of a run. And let's say that a player like Choupo-Moting came in, he would be my third choice striker for United in an FA Cup game. I would probably still start Rashford down the middle over him, and I think Rashford's far better off the left. Like, I don't think in a potential 4 games that are in that competition for United. We're at the quarter-final stage now, aren't we? Quarter-finals, semi-finals, finals, or round of 16?
I think it's round of 16.
Round of 16, so 4 games potentially in that.
In the FA Cup?
In the FA
Cup? We're in round of 32 even. We're not even round of 16 yet.
Yeah, but we've got Newport this weekend, right?
Then
so then round of 16, quarter-final, semi-final, final. So 4 games in that competition. You're signing a player for a 4-game run, effectively. I don't see the point.
I think he played minutes in the Premier League, though, as well.
What is the point of those minutes in the Premier League? What is the point?
Because you need to occasionally rest this 20-year-old striker that has looked pretty
Just play Rashford, then.
Fine, but then you change the entire...
United have signed...
Who do you then play on the left?
United for the last...
But then who do you play on the right? Anthony.
I think
you don't have that
I think there's a number of problems with signing a lone player outside of just that as well. I think the perception matters at the moment for Ineos. I think to sign another lone player, another lone striker, when they've gone through Igalo, they've gone through Weghorst last year, they also brought Sabitzer in last year. Prior to that, older players that have come in on very short-term deals like Ronaldo, like Cavani. I think if Ineos arrive in this January window and their first bit of business is a 37-year-old lone striker.
37?
35. I think he's turning 35.
35-year-old lone striker. I think straight away the questions are...
Nothing's changed.
I get
what you mean.
The sporting director has yet to be appointed, so who's making that decision? Like, for me, there's just perception issues, there's on-the-field issues. It's a waste of wages, to be honest, in a time when Man United don't have many. I just don't see any upside signing Eric Choupo-Moting.
He's a slightly different kettle of fish to Igalo, to Weghorst.
Choupo-Moting?
Yeah, Choupo-Moting's a higher standard of player right now than either of those.
Yeah, but is that just because he's playing for Bayern Munich?
No, he was very good at PSG as well.
I think
he's not been great this year, but he was pretty handy last year.
I think that Man United... I think it's easier to get 10 goals in a Bayern Munich side than Man United. I think if he was to get 3 goals in the second half of the season on loan at Man United, we'd be like, it's okay. What is the point of that? For the loan, for the fee/wages, I just don't think Man United should be signing any more players until they've got a sporting director and a new head of recruitment.
I do see your point. I just think that you're so thin up front now.
We are. We've loaned out a lot of players to try and balance the PSR books.
Still might leave.
Yeah, I think Pellistri probably will leave. And obviously we've seen Hugo go out as well to the lower leagues. Dan Gore's gone recently. Hannibal's gone too.
Greenwood's obviously not in the club.
I think there's going to be reliance on Ahmad to pick up minutes in the second half of the season. But either way,
he's coming to Sunderland.
I don't see a world in which United finish above 7th anyway. And the best they can hope for, United can hope for, in my opinion, is a cup run.
I think, I think that the point does stand there. I think, it would be great to have just some backup other than Rashford at centre forward, but at the same time, can United sign anyone between now and the end of the window who will actually improve the team? No. Have United actually been able to sign anyone this month who could actually improve the team? No. So, I think
your budget.
The 10-week injury to Martial doesn't affect it for me. Affect it for me, and there is no budget. There's zero budget.
Pretty damning indictment on Anthony Martial, isn't it? That he's injured for 10 weeks. You have no backup striker, and people are like, "There's actually no point."
It kind of links quite nicely into my one here, which my next one was Benzema. Benzema to Chelsea, but Man United are also linked with the Benzema approach, aren't they? Obviously having problems at Al Ittihad, went on holiday, didn't he? I think he didn't have that signed off by the club to go on holiday during this mid-season break, then arrived back late, and there's been a few issues. I think his camp have refuted the fact he wants out of Saudi Arabia, but there are continued reports, aren't they, that he's going to leave potentially on loan. And Man United are being linked. There's no way United are affording those wages. Nah. I reckon he must be on upwards of 500k a week in Saudi Arabia.
I think he's got quite a complicated contract.
I saw some figure, don't know whether it's actually verified, often isn't, but 86 million a year apparently.
I mean, what are we talking about, honestly? Like, there's just no way Man United are paying those wages, even for a 6-month deal. It doesn't make sense to me. It really
also, does
doesn't.
Benzema give up, does Benzema foot the potential tax bill that would come his way, similar to Jordan
So many
Henderson
problems there. And I also saw him being linked to Lyon, which, obviously would mean a return home, and it would be an amazing story, wouldn't it? But this isn't the Lyon he left, and this isn't the Lyon we've seen in recent years to an extent.
And they've just spent fairly big on Gift Orban as well.
Exactly. And, 16th in Ligue 1, I think it would have to be a remarkable story for Lyon to suddenly smash their wage bill structure out of the window totally. He would be their top earner by about 600 grand a week at this stage, and they're 16th in the league. I just don't see that happening. So let's discuss him to Chelsea, because this is the rumour that is bubbling a little bit more, and Chelsea have actually got the money to afford him.
Well, Chelsea are looking at John Duran.
Yeah, so they're clearly looking at a striker, and they're looking at potentially also Callum Wilson. Saw the Callum Wilson rumours this morning. £18 million deal potentially there.
I will laugh a lot if you sell Broja to bring in John Duran.
Well, you say that.
Or even to bring in Callum Wilson. I mean, he's so injury prone. I don't know. I like Callum Wilson. I think he's great.
He got 18 goals last season, 7 in 14 this season. How many minutes does he actually have to play at Chelsea as the guy to warrant 18 million?
You think of him kind of experienced marksman, could potentially get double figures in a season.
I don't think I would make that move if I was Todd Burley, and I can't think of too many totally opposite moves to the moves we've seen Paul Winstanley and co make there, which has been under 25s, on long contracts, on low wages. I don't see why on earth they would mix it up and go for Callum Wilson, who, like you said, has had injury problems and feels quite settled in Newcastle.
I thought you were quite behind it.
No, I think he's a good player. I think
everyone thinks he's a good player.
He would be fine there. But why on earth would they do that? I
almost understand that more if it's a short-term deal than selling Broja to bring in John Duran.
It's not a loan.
I know, but he's at least got more proven quality than John Duran. I don't see the benefit, the upside, even, unless Duran's going to explode in the next few years, which he might do, but he doesn't look like he's ready to explode anytime soon. It's just another stopgap. It's just another replacing a youngster, selling an academy graduate to balance the books and bringing in someone of equal or worse quality than Broja.
And why would Villa let him go?
Better than Broja right now?
Why would Villa let him go?
Why would Villa let him go? They've only got Watkins and him.
Callum Wilson and Isaac up front for Newcastle. You could argue potentially they let him go because of the sort of rumoured financial fair play issues Newcastle were facing. Maybe that bumps them up a little bit. But John Duran, we haven't read anything about Villa having financial issues, is very much the number two to Ollie Watkins. Has got the occasional minutes coming off the bench and has actually had impacts in those minutes on occasion. Neither move makes massive sense. I suppose Callum Wilson, I think, would actually be okay for Chelsea, but I just don't see a world in which they do that. And as for Benzema at 36, it feels more Roman Abramovich. It feels more Roman Abramovich than it does Todd Burley. Right?
Yeah. I'd love to see the level he'd come back, because it would be fascinating. Because even in his last year at Real Madrid, he was really pretty excellent. Obviously, the year before that, won the Ballon d'Or. He is a pretty special player.
12 and 20 for Al Ittihad.
I'd have loved to see this move 8 years ago, but I'd still be interested to see what level he'd be at.
I do think, actually, back to Callum Wilson, I think if anything, Chelsea do need to sign more experience if they are.
So would you rather 6 months of Benzema or 3-year contract for Wilson? 2-year contract for Wilson.
I mean, 6 months of Benzema would certainly be more fun. And Benzema, does have the ability to have a galvanising effect on an attack. I think Wilson is would potentially be a cleverer signing in that Chelsea attack does produce chances, and he just is a proven goal getter.
If you look at expected goals across the league, they've produced the second highest expected goals of any side,
and that's been the case for a while now as well.
Just massive XG underperformance in terms of the conversion rate.
Underperformance. I mean, and even so, Nicholas Jackson is still probably going to end the season on maybe 12, 13, 14 Premier League goals, which is absolutely fine. But I think it is good to have someone there who can take the pressure off him a little bit, because the goals just haven't been coming from out wide enough. I don't think, like, Cole Palmer has got a great record this season, but I think Sterling should have scored more, for one. Mudryk certainly should be scoring more in this Chelsea side. Not been very impressed by him this season either. So yeah, I think someone who could come in and take the pressure off Jackson a little bit would be good, because he's kind of had the Chelsea fans on his back as well.
Yeah, Benzema's fun. It was fun.
I think Callum Wilson's more muddled thinking, because
Benzema.
Well, I think both are muddled thinking, to be totally honest. Callum Wilson, even if he arrives, they're still going to want to sign a really proven top-level young striker in the summer. Probably Victor Osimhen they'll go for. So what? Then Nicholas Jackson's third choice behind Callum Wilson, who doesn't... And he needs the development time, Nicholas Jackson. Point. He needs the trust. Like, it's kind of calling time on Nicholas Jackson when actually he's shown glimpses of being pretty useful this season. So I'd probably do nothing.
So you go Benzema.
So you would.
I would stick with Broja and Jackson to the end of the year.
So you would.
I don't think they're going to make top four anyway.
But then you would sign Osimhen in the summer.
Yes, I'd go for and then put Jackson down to number 2 and probably sell Broja to balance the books.
I think just from a neutral's perspective.
I mean, Osimhen to Chelsea won't happen, I don't think.
No, I'd be surprised. Without Champions League football. But like, it would be fun seeing Benzema at Chelsea, wouldn't it? It would be awesome. It would be so fun. Like, just to see how he does, like you say. Just to see how he does.
He's very Chelsea. He's very Chelsea.
Before we go on to yours, Dukes, I've actually got Broja as my other one. So should we just quickly touch on that? I don't know whether you guys have an opinion on it. Obviously, I was watching David Ornstein's sort of vodcast thing he was doing on CBS, and he was talking about the 3 clubs being linked with him: Wolves, West Ham, Fulham. So I thought it might be kind of fun to see who we think would be best suited to there. I think for me the standout side is Wolves. Sasa Kaladzic has gone out to Frankfurt this window. Fabio Silva's gone out to Rangers this window, which kind of does open up a little bit of a space in that forward line when you think Cunha having a really good season, 7 Premier League goals, a dribble monster, such a good ball progressor. Hwang having the best season of his career, arguably. I think the last time he scored double figures was 2019, and that was in Austria, and he's already on 11. So you kind of are slightly worried about displacing one of them potentially, and with the return of Pedro Neto, that feels like the locked-in front 3. But none of them are truly natural goal scorers, I don't think. Like, Hwang is having an amazing season, but I don't think he's the most natural finisher. I think he's getting in really good positions this year and taking his chances at an above expected goals rate, which great, but I don't see it continuing
you can
for
also
3
play
or 4 years.
Can't he? Like,
can also play wide. Cunha has never really been a goal scorer. I mean, other than that one exceptional season at Hertha, at Atletico, never really a goal scorer. Last season, never really a goal scorer. This season's got 7, but I think he could almost play as a 10.
Yeah, he's definitely got the technical.
Amazing ball progressor, works super hard. Could almost have a little bit of a Joe Linton style retreater there, where he drops into a midfield role. Maybe he's not as good of a defensive machine as Joe Linton has proved, and off the ball capabilities are amazing, but could he be more of a ball progressor from the midfield areas? I think potentially. So there is maybe a space for a 9 in that squad, at least rotationally, and Broja feels like quite a nice fit. Prior to the ACL injury, which obviously has had massive impact on him, there was quite a lot of hype around Armando Broja. That season at Southampton, yes, it was only 6 goals in 32 games, but
he's really, really young.
He was super young. I think he was 19 or 20, and some of the finishing was pretty exceptional. He was very physical for a 19, 20-year-old. Rubbish Southampton side. Worked hard off the ball, though. And even before that, at Vitesse, I think he got 10 in 30. So there were definite little signs of Armando Broja being a very decent prospect up front. And Gary O'Neill might like to work with something like that. I think it's quite a nice fit. The only thing that puts me off is that fee. 50 million is too much. I don't see why Wolves would spend 50 million on Armando Broja. I feel like that 50 million could go on another young striker across Europe. Their talent identification seems to have been okay recently, actually. So,
yeah, I think physically he definitely would suit that Gary O'Neill side for sure.
He could play in the front 2 as well, potentially.
Yeah. him and Hwang kind of being second striker to him potentially, or Cunha being second striker to him. Yeah, I quite like that. Who are the other ones? Fulham and West Ham. I think
West Ham's actually the best fit for me personally.
Do you?
I think Mikel Antonio's probably going to retire in the summer or be let go.
You don't like Bowen through the middle?
Sorry? I do like Bowen through the middle, but you could. I mean, they need another forward in there.
You can't rely on him.
You could play Kudus through the middle as well, but I think Broja, being that, having a little bit more stature to his game. He's not like a natural Moyes striker because I think he's more of a channel runner than like a hold up the ball sort of guy.
Although Antonio is a channel runner.
Yeah, true. But he probably just doesn't have the stature to hold up the ball in the same way as Antonio is what I'm trying to say. But and then at the same time, it's worked very well playing Bowen through the middle. So I think Moyes is, his use of the forwards this year has been a little bit underrated, I think, actually.
I feel, maybe it's just me, I feel like West Ham can maybe aim a little bit higher.
Well, their signings recently have been excellent, haven't they?
Yeah, pretty exceptional. Like, I think the Calvin Phillips signing is awesome. Like, really good move. Loan with an option. Well. It's not like an obligation. Well, I just think West Ham are potentially competing for a top 8 spot. I think Wolves, realistically, I think if they were to get into the top half, it'd be a miraculous job done by Gary O'Neill this season. I think that's what is maybe more like 12th. Whereas I think West Ham, off the back of that Conference League win, the signings made in the summer, players like Paqueta and Kudus, I think they potentially can aim slightly higher than Armando Broja, who, his best ever season, 10 goals. That feels like more of a development at Wolves. I think West Ham, budget's pretty clearly fairly large there, following Sir.
But can everyone aim higher for £40 million? I think all those clubs could potentially do better. I know he's obviously used to the English game. Sorry?
Living in London,
I know,
bigger wages.
I know.
European
and
champions.
Obviously Chelsea want that fee. I'm not surprised they do. They need to balance the book somehow. But I just think maybe all of them could do with a cheaper alternative that maybe has the potential to be a higher performing player, especially on the back of that serious injury. I don't know whether I've necessarily been wowed when I've seen Broja this year. I think he's done pretty well in moments, and it's been fits and starts, hasn't it? But maybe all of them can aim a little bit higher.
Sorry, Armando. Yeah. I do think you're a really good player. I think Wolves would be a really good fit. Next up, who's got the next suggestion?
Okay, let's talk about a move that looks like it's going to be done, actually. It was one of the surprising moves of the window, or, if it is completed, definitely one of the most surprising rumours. Gio Reyna potentially going to Nottingham Forest on loan.
Not Marseille.
Sorry?
Not Marseille.
I don't know. I haven't heard that. Is that Marseille?
I think it's the battle. It's the battle between Forest and Marseille here. Major battles going on. It's Ornstein versus Di Marzio.
Yeah, okay. Because there was a number of different rumours last week about clubs that were interested in him, which included, I've got it down here, Real Sociedad, Atletico Madrid, Sevilla and Benfica. So if I had those on the table, and also Nottingham Forest, who are 4 points above relegation at the moment, and Luton have a game in hand, and they could face a points deduction, I'm going to one of those. I don't know why I'd even go to Forest. Absolutely. No disrespect to Forest, but it doesn't seem like necessarily the best time to be like, get me to the City ground. But at the same time, he does need a move. Jadon Sancho's return to Dortmund, even if it's only for 6 months, he's instantly hit the ground running. Reyna's really fallen down the pecking order. I've actually got the stat here. He's never started. He's only started more than 6 league games in a season once. Reyna. So he's been used off the bench primarily in his entire career, except in 2021, where he started 23 and actually responded with 9 goal involvements in that season. But he is very much an impact player at Dortmund. He's had a number of injuries. It's close to 60 games missed since the start of 2021. Even this year, he just looks a little bit short on confidence. He had that falling out at the World Cup with his coach. It just feels like nothing's really gone well for him in the last couple of years, and he needs to get his career back on track. For him personally, is Nottingham Forest the right move right now? I wouldn't suggest so, but they do kind of need him. Like Elanga and Gibbs-White are out at the moment. They don't really have anyone else. I mean, they're having to play Nicolas Dominguez on the wing against Brentford last weekend, alongside with Cho on the other side. I think Hudson-Odoi is their only fit winger at the moment, so I can see why Nottingham Forest want to go for him. But is it wise for Nottingham Forest to carry on spending? It's someone on pretty sizable wages, you imagine, or at least compared to their budget. There is definitely a talent in there in Gio Reyna. He does need a move. I just don't know whether Nottingham Forest is the one for him right now.
I also think, in terms of kind of what we've heard about Gio Reyna's character over the years as well, like he's not the easiest player to manage, and I don't know, stepping into a inflated squad which has basically just about stayed in the Premier League, through just sheer spending, not really that much through any kind of huge coherent long-term plan. Feels a little bit disastrous, if I'm honest. I think Forest suits players who are a bit more, I don't know, maybe a bit more experienced, have already kind of proven themselves, and also players who haven't been going from a Champions League club to Forest is quite the step down.
Yeah.
So,
only 21 though.
Sociedad would be great for him, I think.
Sociedad would be brilliant.
What do you think of Marseille?
Again, like Marseille,
it's very tempestuous.
Slightly messy vibes. Marseille.
Very messy vibes.
I think you need Gio Reyna somewhere. Somewhere similar to Dortmund, really. But even at Dortmund, it hasn't quite worked out. So I think he needs a really solid structure around.
If Benfica were having a better season, I think Benfica would be quite a good move. But there's a risk with going to Benfica that even if you play well for Benfica, clubs around Europe are just like, well, it's the Portuguese league. Whereas if you do well in the Premier League for Nottingham Forest, you put yourself in the shop window for a better move this summer. But I agree with McCubbs. He needs this move to really work for him, and I just think Nottingham Forest is a risk.
Yeah, big risk. Mikey, next
cool.
one.
I'll go for someone going out of Nottingham Forest actually now. Orel Mangala. Now, I think Forest will probably fight to keep Mangala. However, with PSR stuff, maybe it would be wise to cash in on him because Napoli are interested, although at the time that we're recording this, it looks like they're more likely to get a loan deal done for Leander Dendoncker from Aston Villa as their kind of midfield signing for January. I would much rather Mangala if I was Napoli, and I think Mangala is.
How do you go from winning the league to signing Dendoncker?
I know.
6 months.
I mean, equally, I would back Napoli to get a tune out of Dendoncker.
Sure.
He's not a terrible player. He's still only 28.
It's played about 100 minutes.
This is the thing. Eight starts in the league since the start of last season. 1 start in the league this season.
But that Aston Villa midfield,
is
top.
Really good. It is really good.
It's hard to breach.
The depth.
It's hard to breach.
It is really good. But I think from a Napoli's perspective, who would I rather sign? Someone who's basically played next to no football over the last 2 years, or someone who is the best midfielder at their club? And I know Villa are much better than Forest, but I think Orel Mangala has looked really, really good for Forest this year.
You said you were impressed by him when you saw him live on Friday.
I think against Brentford he was easily Forest's best player. I think again, and also he's someone who I don't know whether he'll ever get to a really good level in the Premier League, just because I don't think he's quite combative enough for a deep-lying player in the Premier League. Whereas I think in Italy, where you have a little bit more space to actually run into. Look at someone like Anguissa, him going from Fulham to Napoli. He instantly looks so much better. And I think as a ball carrier, and a transitional player as well, I think Mangala can add a different dynamic to that Napoli midfield. 25 million euros is apparently what.
It's quite a big fee.
It is quite a big fee. I forget what Nottingham Forest paid.
I don't think he was cheap there either.
Maybe 15, I think.
Yeah, he was pretty. He was pretty essential to that Stuttgart side as well. But I just think Napoli, Zielinski's leaving in the summer. Their only real deep-lying options are Anguissa, who's away at the moment, and Lobotka. They've already brought in a number of signings this January as well, haven't they? They brought in Junior Hamad Traore, Cyril Ngonge, and I think this Napoli team does need more investment, especially if they're going to finish or at least battle for Champions League spots this year, which looks more and more unlikely, but they are still in the hunt. I think Mangala would be a good pickup. Whether Forest would sell him, only Gibbs White's played more minutes than him this season, so I can see why Nottingham Forest would want to keep him. But I think for player and for the buying club, I think Mangala would be, Mangala to Napoli would be great.
Yeah, I mean, could you imagine if Jose does go there?
Spalletti to Mourinho in 3 appointments. Crazy.
Yeah. Very, very interesting, that one. Okay, my last one. Slightly different vibe here. It's not really a January transfer, but just over the last few days, over the last 48 hours, just been some rumblings about a potential summer transfer, that there could have been contact happening already in this January window, and that is Joshua Kimmich. Now, there's no way, I'm going to caveat, there's no way he moves in January. Bayern fans, keep your hats on. It's very obvious that's not going to happen. The rumours are, obviously, he's out of contract in 2025. So this summer would be their last opportunity to get a fee, really, for Joshua Kimmich, who I think we can all agree is one of the outstanding defensive midfielders in world football, if not the outstanding defensive midfielder in world football, alongside the likes of Rodri and probably Declan Rice and Choupo-Moting. But with the contract up in 2025, Bayern apparently have other priorities at the moment. This is from Bild. In terms of signings, you know, we've seen them linked with Trippier. We've seen them linked with who's the lad at PSG, the alternative, Mukiele, is it?
Yep.
They've obviously brought Eric Dyer in too. So clearly the contract's kind of been put on the back burner. I don't know whether that's just irritated Kimmich a little bit, potentially, that his contract hasn't been sorted by now. And now we're hearing PSG sniffing about, Manchester City sniffing about, and in the last 24 hours, Liverpool sniffing about. And I love that move. Obviously, I don't as a Man United fan, but as a football fan, Liverpool potentially needing a defensive midfielder. You know, Endo 30 now. We saw the recruitment over the summer. I know McAllister's got a lot of minutes in the 6. I do think he is slightly better as an 8 than he is a 6. He's doing a great job at the moment. Let's take nothing away from him. And I actually think Endo is really growing into this side as a 30-year-old. Fine, but Kimmich in that deep lying position with McAllister
next to each other,
exactly, with McAllister and Szoboszlai in front of them, and then in possession. You know, we're talking about one of the primo progressive passers in world football here. I think he's averaging around about 10 progressive passes a game at Bayern from that deep lying position. Him and Trent flying those balls over the top, Kimmich cutting balls through the lines, defensive transition.
Yeah, they're almost
monstrous.
stylistically.
They're interchanging in that
similar.
right. No, but is it a case? I would just love to see that. Imagine them interchanging that right back slot when Trent tucks in there, Kimmich drops in. When Kimmich drops in there, Trent drops in. You've got two quarterbacks. You know, oh my! I think it's a delicious move.
I don't know whether I'm just being a bit miserable, but we've only ever seen him in a double pivot at Bayern.
Yeah,
really.
He play alongside McAllister.
True, but he's not really played. You know, in this midfield, in this imaginary Liverpool midfield, he'd be the defender. He'd be the guy that's expected to do most defensive work, which is not the role we've ever really seen him do. And I wonder whether he'd be left slightly exposed at times. Like, Bayern have had a number of defensive issues, particularly in transition over the last few years. He's not particularly quick. I don't know whether I play him as a lone 6.
I think it would be much easier to play in that lone 6 at Liverpool than at Bayern. I think the Bundesliga is a far more transitional league. Domestically, and that's why a lot of wingers shine there, who you know, have acres of space to run into. I think that
someone's bitter about Sancho.
Not at all, but I think that is the case. It is a more transitional league, and as a 6 you can get harmed a little bit more. I think as a 6 at Liverpool, as we've seen with a player like McAllister, I don't even think McAllister has looked particularly exposed for Liverpool, actually. You know, he's clearly not as defensively astute as a player like Joshua Kimmich, who we've seen be able to play at right back at times, such as defensive nows. In fact, came through as a right back, really, and transitioned into midfield more under Pep Guardiola. But I think that if we're not seeing McAllister get that exposed too much, I don't think we'd see Kimmich get crazy exposed. I think Liverpool's line is maybe a little bit better than Bayern Munich's. Certainly think Virgil van Dijk is a better centre-back. You know, I actually think Konate is probably better than Upamecano as well. So as a back two, I think that offers him more cover in there. I just think all round this would be an amazing move. The reported fees of 50 to 60 million pounds, I think, is an absolute snip, because you're not even taking into account some of the other things that I think he brings to sides. You know, his leadership qualities, his organisational. Well, would he be on set pieces with Trent?
He's an amazing crosser of a ball. He'd be right up there.
You can't take Trent off set pieces, man. He's
I don't know.
An absolute weapon on them, man.
Almost as good.
Well, yeah, it's a weapon to have, isn't it? But either way, I just think it's a very Klopp signing in terms of the leadership, you know, personality, character that he would bring to that dressing room. I think he would work like a dog. He would just buy straight into that Jurgen Klopp system. I think having a German at the helm as well helps. So you've got an immediate German speaker there. I think if Liverpool could get that deal done, they should move mountains to get Kimmich over the line.
Nice that he's a couple of years younger than Virgil van Dijk as well in terms of that. I know it will still be Trent taking over from Van Dijk as captain, but as you say, in that leadership figure, because him and Robertson are around the same age as well, and there is a nice, you know, with Henderson having left in the summer, there is a nice transition of that leadership group taking through those younger players, because Liverpool's young players, like, you look through that 11 of players who are under 25, and it's really, really impressive.
I think 3 20-year-olds started last night against Fulham. You think of Conor Bradley, Curtis,
only 24. Like Luis Diaz is still really young. Konate, Joe Gomez is still relatively young, given how much he's played.
Playing well at the moment.
Playing really well at the moment. So yeah, I'd be excited by the Kimmich move. I just don't know whether I play.
How old is he now?
28.
28. My only thing is that if you sign Kimmich now, in 3-4 years' time, you're guaranteed to have to spend at least 60-70 million on another defensive midfielder.
We're talking 3-4 years at this stage. I
don't think this is a favourite of Florentino Luis.
I don't think this is a 30-40-year-old, is it?
Get in right now.
I don't think it's a 30 to 32-year-old. Like, I think a 28's fine. It's absolute prime of his career. I wouldn't be worried about Kimmich physically. Either
right back is helpful as well.
I just think that'd be like the other teams linked. Man City was scary thought. Him and Rodri playing as a midfield too, really, really scary thought. And as we've worked with Pep Guardiola before,
in some ways, I think Kimmich would maybe just fit into a City midfield easier, like straight away. Like he could just slot in there. But then City have also spent, bringing in Nunez and Kovacic in the summer, like, kind of means that, like, they're just not
bizarre those, weren't they? Very bizarre. And then also Barcelona linked. Now Barcelona wouldn't be for next summer. It'd be hoping that he doesn't sign a contract and leaves for a free. Classic. Obviously got no money, which I just don't see that one happening. Like, they're kind of relying on the fact they're Barcelona there again, and I think when you're up against Man City and
don't even know if Xavi's going to be manager by the summer. Like,
I just think one of those two, Man City or Liverpool, both amazing moves. Let's bring him to Man United as well. That would be lovely. Let's make that happen. Let's start that campaign, actually. Kimmich to United. Let's start that campaign.
Wow,
could happen. Last ones.
Sure. I've got two more. I'll briefly touch on the one we've already just talked about. This club, but Bayern Munich, like, they do need to strengthen now at right back. Like, Conrad Laimer picked up an injury against Union Berlin last night in their game in hand, which they won 1-0 thanks to that Rafael Guerreiro goal. So the lead has been cut to 4 points now between them and Leverkusen. But Conrad Laimer's out, Mazraoui's out. I don't actually know Mazraoui's return date. I don't think it's for a while. They obviously sold Pavard in the summer. They made the ridiculous decision to loan Stanisic to Bayer Leverkusen as well, who's not even playing there, but he'd just be a useful body to have. Buna Sarr's out for the whole year, so they don't have any right backs now.
Where's Pavlovic playing?
Sorry?
Does Pavlovic play there?
I think he's naturally a midfielder, but yes, he did come on there last night. On Wednesday, they are linked with Nordi Mukiele. That's exciting because he can cover at centre-back as well. Loan move, fine, but PSG apparently pushing for an obligation to buy. But I wonder whether they sign someone who is quite clearly a backup to Mazraoui when everyone's fit, but that can step in quite effectively. Someone like Sacha Boey from Galatasaray. He's 23 years old, excellent defender, and just a really good all-round fullback. I think Galatasaray average around 60% possession, but he's still at about 4.5 defensive actions per 90. His progressive passes are through the roof. He's just a really good all-round fullback, and Galatasaray fans absolutely love him. Would they get him in January? Potentially not, especially with the amount of money that they've seemingly got to spend at the moment. But I just think that you've got to aim younger than Trippier. You can't be signing 33-year-olds in January if you're Bayern Munich.
It's a weird little move, isn't it? Like, it feels like very Bayern, these recent moves, the move for Bayern, there's been so much chaos behind the scenes in terms of their sporting directors, in terms of Oliver Kahn leaving in the summer. I just think their transfer strategy has been really muddled in the last couple of windows. Like, they've missed out on a number of targets, which doesn't really happen. They've missed out to clubs that you'd expect them to get them over as well. The Polina move was a mess.
Trevor Chalobah on the final day. Like, Bayern just weren't known. Bayern used to do their summer business in February, March time. And then the players would arrive on June the 1st ready for pre-season, not panicking on deadline day, not trying to sign Kieran Trippier, who's 33 years old and actually in a bad moment. So, yeah, Bayern and a right-back is actually, I think, one of the most important moves to get done before the end of the window.
Yeah. Do you don't think they need to strengthen that midfield?
I mean,
they've not gone back in
they don't really, I mean, they don't have... Yeah, with Conrad Laimer out as well, they've only got Kimmich, Goretzka, and I think Laimer was their third centre midfielder as well. So they just have such a thin squad in two areas, which is why I don't think they'll go deep in the Champions League, or at least they won't win it.
Okay.
Yeah. I guess Eric Dyer can step into midfield if needed.
Made his debut last night.
He did.
Yeah.
I'm tired of people mocking the accent thing already. Afterwards. Yeah, I don't know. That's just starting to wire me up a little bit already.
What was that?
He's doing sort of
German accent.
Yeah, the German accent thing. But like,
he already had a kind of voice that was kind of like that anyway.
And also, like, let's not forget that, like, he is Portuguese speaker first and foremost. Grew up in Portugal and then English. Like, I don't think he should have to talk in a certain accent at all. If that's what's communicating across,
that big a German accent.
Yeah, and if that's what's coming across understandable to the German media and teammates, more power to you, Eric. Man.
It's just, I think people just like it because it's funny. Like, Steve McLaren doing the Dutch accent was objectively funny.
That was funny. I think it is an issue. I think, like, if you're going into a squad which probably is predominantly English speaking because you've got players from all over the world, and then you've got a German base who, probably by and large speak pretty good English as well. There is a certain way of speaking English that kind of translates well.
Absolutely.
And so when you're surrounded by it, when you're surrounded by that style of English, then you probably do naturally pick it up. But yeah, okay. Speaking of midfields, are we sticking on midfield.
Mm-hmm.
Conor Gallagher to Tottenham. Why not? Tottenham, go for it.
Orny saying it's one to watch. Saying it's one to watch. Poor deadline there.
Wow. I think at the right price, I think Conor Gallagher would be a great signing for Tottenham. I think they need another body in midfield. Højbjerg, his contract's up in 2025. Mm-hmm. I feel like his long-term future at the club has been in question for a long time now. Has never been, a particularly, strong choice under Ange Postecoglou, at least. You've also got Lo Celso's contract up in 2025 as well, and Conor Gallagher, in terms of his defensive work, can replicate some of what Højbjerg does in terms of his attacking play, can replicate a bit of what Lo Celso does, even though he doesn't have the finesse necessarily of Lo Celso. But yeah, and that Spurs midfield does look great when Bissouma and Sarr are there. But they do need cover there, and I think he can also, he's also someone who I think would start in big games. Obviously, Maddison's returning soon as well.
This weekend potentially.
Yeah, so I think that Spurs midfield, it just needs depth. It does need depth, and I think if Spurs could get Chelsea down to £40 million, I think that would be an amazing signing for them.
I think it's a coup as well. There's something to be
from
said.
Your rival.
Yeah, there's something to be said for taking your direct rival's captain. Like, he's captained them, I think, 15 times this season. He's clearly a key player in that Pochettino system. As much as people say, like Chelsea fans say, we could move him on, we wouldn't be that fussed. Well, Pochettino, I think, would be fussed. Pochettino, I think, would definitely be fussed. He started more than any of those other midfielders. He has been relied upon as a leader in the dressing room more than any of those figures, hence the captaincy. I think that would be a major blow to Pochettino. It'd be a statement of intent to the rest of the league. Even if he wasn't starting every game, having the options of a midfield five that can contain Sarr, Bissouma, Bentancur, Maddison and Gallagher is amongst the best midfield fives in the Premier League. It's young, it's talented, it can go two ways, it's comfortable on the ball, it works like dogs off it. I think it's an excellent midfield five. I think for £40 million, it would be an amazing signing. Conor Gallagher.
And I think if you think about it just in the short...
I don't necessarily agree.
I think, but also, if you look at it in the short term, I think getting someone like Gallagher in boosts Tottenham's top four hopes quite considerably. And if we're going into the summer, Spurs have, signed Chelsea captain, and he's performing well at Tottenham, got him in on a good deal as well. And they're in the Champions League as well. I think it's huge.
The
Nusa signing as well.
I really like the effect it could have on Chelsea. I think that's a positive for Tottenham. I totally agree.
Massively.
I think the reason I am more pro it than I would be is because Rodrigo Bentancur is really struggling to stay fit consistently. Yeah. But I don't think he would be... I think he'd be the fifth choice out of those midfielders. I think Maddison, Bissouma, Sarr and Bentancur would all and should all be played ahead of Gallagher. I don't know whether he's better than any of those when they're all fully fit and on form. So
you spend the money elsewhere?
I think you don't spend it necessarily in January. You probably keep Højbjerg, you probably keep Skip, and use that money more effectively in the summer on maybe signing an elite striker, or maybe strengthening further at right wing, or maybe signing better backups in fullback positions and getting rid of Emerson. Maybe signing another centre half, because they've still only got three really top ones. And we haven't even seen that much of Dragic.
Or maybe in the midfield area, like, not to poo-poo on my own opinion here, because I think Gallagher would be an amazing signing, but maybe it's more of a Bissouma backup than a Sarr backup.
For sure. I just don't know whether they need another box-to-box energetic type, and this is no dig on Gallagher. I think he's had
That is the Ange profile of midfielder, though, isn't it?
True. I think he's had a really good year, but also I think he needs to be playing regularly ahead of the Euros. I think there's a decent chance that he goes. I pick him ahead of Jordan Henderson for sure at the moment, and he's got to be in that conversation for the England squad. So from Gallagher's point of view, do you want to go to Spurs where you might not play every week? You might not.
Probably more likelihood of game time at Chelsea than at Spurs, honestly. Yeah. In that midfield, for now anyway, because obviously Cole Palmer is...
It's a really interesting one. I can see why it's very divisive, because some Chelsea fans think he's the best thing since sliced bread. Others think he's like a sign of their issues, that he has been their best player this season. I think both are kind of true.
Have you got any more names?
Yes, I've got down one more. Arthur Vermeeran. He looks like he's going to Atletico Madrid. This is going to be confirmed. Antwerp central midfielder, 18 years old, was being linked with a number of clubs, had a really good Champions League campaign. I think 2 assists and 1 goal, scored against Barcelona in a game that they beat them 3-2 in that period where it kind of kick-started Barcelona's troubles, really. He's been playing for Antwerp for 2 years. He's only 18. Was watching some highlights of him. He is very much like a sort of ball controller rather than a final third player. He'll drop in between the centre-backs. He's got a really nice range of passing. Over 4 tackles and interceptions per 90 in the Champions League this year. They're signing for around 20 million euros, I think. And it's a really nice move, I think, because a lot of their midfielders are now getting towards or over 30. Like Koke is now 32. I don't know where that time's gone. Rodrigo de Paul approaching 30. Axel Witsel, who's been used at centre back, but he's 35. They've got the second oldest average age in La Liga after Rayo Vallecano, so they needed some young blood. This is a central midfielder, that a lot of clubs were looking at, and I think it's a nice move.
Yeah. Totally agree. So are we ranking these on?
Yeah. What do we think is the most important to get done?
Bayern Munich right back is pretty high.
That's the one that stuck.
That's pretty high.
For me.
Yeah, I kind of agree. I think Bayern Munich right back. I do think potentially a forward at Chelsea. I do like Nicholas Jackson, but I think if they could get a forward over the line, no, I actually like John Duran. Every time I've watched him, watched the 90 minutes of Aston Villa and he's come on, he's made an impact. He's very physical, very direct. I think he's quite technically sound. I don't think it's the worst signing ever, but I've struggled to see where it fits when Nicholas Jackson's there, Broja's there. But I think maybe an experienced forward at Chelsea.
Okay. I think Antonio Nusa would be a really nice pickup for Spurs. It's not like a must-do, though, so I don't think it necessarily fits
There's
into that
not lots of must-dos here for me.
No. Mikey, what do you think was your most, had to be done?
There's nothing glaring. I mean, I think if they could get someone in Man United, getting in a forward for sure, but it just seems so unlikely. Out of my ones, I like Mangala to Napoli, but I think short term wise, if Spurs can get Gallagher for 40 million, I don't know if they will, but if they could do that, because they would otherwise get him for cheaper in the summer. I don't know whether Gallagher's going to sign a new contract to Chelsea. That's the thing. But if they could make the most of this situation right now and get someone in who can offer a lot of really quality cover, and I think would actually start most games between now and the end of the season. Let's face it. I just see there being more injury issues in this Tottenham side between now and the end of the season. Basuma and Sarr coming back from, will be coming back from AFCON. They've got a lot of minutes in their legs at this point. I think Spurs needs a utility player like that if they want to be serious about getting a top 4 spot. That top 4 spot is
it's up for grabs.
It's in their hands, mate.
Or
more.
Yeah,
it kind
of is in their hands.
Is the title charge on? It's on. It's their year, mate.
But you know what I mean? And it's just at the start of the season, no one was talking about Spurs as a top 4 contender, really. Aside from George Wright, weirdly enough.
That's very true.
But now that they have the opportunity, they should just go for it. They should absolutely go for it.
Double down, try and win the league.
If in the summer, there could potentially be some really top clubs sniffing around Adji Postecoglou in the summer, and if he has a Champions League campaign to look forward to at Spurs, then I think that secures his future as a manager.
Secure. I think he's.
I don't think he's going.
I think he's very loyal.
Twitter will explode if Conor Gallagher joins Spurs. Twitter will explode.
Exactly. That's what we want
for that.
Yeah. All right, that's it for today's episode of Sunday Vibes. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit the like button. The boys will be back for Monday Vibes.
We will. Thank you very much for joining us today, Joe. Great addition.
No worries. Unfortunately, not around for Monday Vibes, but I'm sure these boys are going to do a stellar job reviewing the FA Cup fixtures at the weekend. The big one, of course, being Tottenham hosting Manchester City. Man City never win there, so could we see the end of the quadruple hope
as well? I imagine because it's FA Cup weekend.
We can't do quadruple anyway, can they? Because they're out of the Carabao Cup. Anyway, goodbye.